foremost, thank you for taking a minute out today. And I want to begin by asking about what we've lived through the last couple of years. The restrictions, everybody's kind of opening up, COVID's slowing down, so to speak. The virus is still here, but things are opening up. How did you survive it? How did you survive that time period, the last couple of years? And how has it subsequently changed the way that you live your life and conduct business?
Wow, Joe, so much has happened for all of us, my clients, my friends. Uh, it's been incredibly challenging for all of us. Now, I was here in Florida. I moved here 15 years ago to be with my elderly mother through the end of her life. She died in 2019, just a few months before the lockdown started.
Yeah.
And I was still going through the shock of that and the grieving, so much so. I did travel back from a training with a mentor of mine in late February of 2020. So it hit hard in that way because I was witnessing some of it at the airport, but then I was teaching online prior. I knew this ahead of time because I'm an astrologer. And I had seen indicators that told me I needed to start working online and get it done by 2016. This is where I was at. So I feel like I was already prepping myself. And because of that, I was able to help people. But when it happened, so many people struggled that I was learning new ways to help them. And then I was already trying to pivot because in 2020, after we were locked down, I had been bugging this mentor to teach me how to make video courses that would be successful. And because he has one that's so successful. It's even his own, and he has a version that he does with Mind Valley. That's where I met him back in
Yeah.
2018. So this has been going on in my head for a while. I can't say poof, I was magic and I got it all done. But then I was alone. I was living totally alone. I don't have a pet. I had been traveling a lot for study and work. So it was like hitting the brakes or almost going in reverse at some levels. And then I did take that video course, so I was, working on that. I had already started a podcast, so I was getting all this digital stuff in place. But for people who didn't or still haven't, the pivoting, if they still have a great need and they
Yeah.
can see how their business will work, is what's tragic to me. Because how can we help them? And if you're not an influencer or you're not doing all this stuff. And then I had to become all these things. Like I came from the music business as one of my entrepreneurial skill sets. I am a serial multipreneur since I was 14 years old. I'm in my 60s now. So it's a long time. I've been juggling different careers in different ways. And I think this is what makes me so valuable, or one of the reasons, as a coach, because I can really see, I have a gift for seeing, like, well, pivoting or other choices and helping my clients really work through these things. But as an astrologer, I also have greater insight that isn't available to everyone at every level. So I
You
was
got
I was already beginning, but then there were other things that happened, that made it easier. I felt like I was on a space station. I live in a small house, and there was times in the very beginning, I don't know about you, but I was only going out for walks really late at night, and the neighborhood was quiet, no planes, no cars out in the distance. It was weird and spooky.
I kept feeling like I was in an episode of The Twilight Zone and David
Mm.
Lynch was gonna come out at some point and just yell cut and just flick a cigarette and be done with it.
Oh my God.
See y'all later. So you just in this very short amount of time of answering one question, you've talked about many different things that you do, that you have done. So my question to you is, let's get this boiled down to a level that everybody can understand. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders at a career day, and one of the kids looks up at you and says, What do you do for a living? How do you answer them?
I do many things, and it's really important for you to understand that you don't have to just pick a single lane. Or if that is comfortable to you, make sure that single lane is something you love doing. Because if you don't love doing, it will become really unhappy. And the most important thing is for you to make sure that you feel energized and you want to go towards that direction that you're choosing. And there are many different things you can do with skills like art or even being really active on the playground. But it may be that you need to ask some people who are doing what you think you might want to do or who could help guide you if you can't figure it out.
So let's take you back to the third grade. What did you want to be when you grew up?
Mm. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be an artist. I grew up riding horses, so I was very happy with training horses and uh, helping my family with them because that was a partial income for my family.
So, the one thing that's key to our development is where we came from. Talk to me a little bit about where you were born and raised. And we all have these seeds that are planted in us, whether we know it or we don't know it. But our childhood and our early experiences are a really deep indicator of where we end up, like where you are now. What were those experiences like, and where did you grow up?
I grew up in Pennsylvania in the United States, and my mother was an antique dealer, and my father loved horses. He played violin and he was a great dancer. So there was music and art around all the time. Later in my teens, my dad was a president of a very well known playhouse called the Bucks County Playhouse in New Hope, Pennsylvania. And I started working there when I was 14. I also started teaching horseback riding at 14. Those were my first two entrepreneurial, well, one was a job and the other was entrepreneurial. Uh, at 17, I was cooking in a restaurant. I've done so many things. I would make a career counselor pass out just from me answering, tell me all the jobs you've done from when you started working till you were 18. But I had one ask me to where I was, and I was in my early 30s at the time. And after about an hour, she said, stop, stop. I can't take it anymore because I have done many, many things. I mean, it's just comfortable for me. I have multiple degrees. I have a bachelor's of fine arts. I have a teaching license. I've got a master's degree in yoga. I've also got an undergrad in astrology. I studied acupuncture as an apprentice, but at the time when it was had come to become legal, the Western medical system had gotten involved. I taught holistic health at the university college level. We call it in the US. For 21 years, I worked for major associations as a volunteer. I wrote some of the test questions and part of the code of ethics for a national organization that now tests massage therapists and other hands on healers. So that shows you how I could handle my health, but I've studied many modalities when it comes to holistic health and have taught them aromatherapy before anybody knew what it was, herbology. And because think about it, I'm in my 60s, everyone. I studied as an apprentice many times with an astrologer, very famous, Barbara Shear. She used to write for Sedona Times. And she was very well known in Berkeley in the 60s, along with her husband. So I've studied with amazing master teachers. I have 5 different certifications in yoga, and my master's degree is in the education and philosophy of yoga and meditation. I've been researching a PhD for 10 years.
So there's obviously the core of you that has a level of restlessness, maybe a nomadic notion of, getting out there and doing things. Where do you think that came from? How do you think that was cultivated?
My dad was a traveler. He was in World War II, but the thing that he really had as a positive takeaway from it was the travel. And when I was in second grade, my parents began to take me traveling in foreign countries. And I remember in fourth grade, we were in London and we went to see where beefeaters were guarding Buckingham Palace. And he recognized a beefeater, and the beefeater came out of, the pose and actually greeted him. And I was blown away. I mean, so, I also learned shoot pictures, not guns. I was raised by pacifists. And I was sent to Quaker school. So they taught me to meditate at age 6. We weren't Quaker. It was just the best school choice nearby. And I grew up in a very particular, very beautiful school system, falling in love with reading. After the first time I went to first grade, though, I had to stop first grade. There was an issue with my teacher, and then it was so far into the school year, something went wrong, and they allowed some of us, if we were going to repeat first grade elsewhere, to just leave. So that there was that, because I couldn't read the first time around, but now I obviously can. I have 6 books and I'm a publisher.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And my
yeah.
second book is on an introduction to Ayurveda, yoga, meditation, not yoga, the exercise, the philosophy, meditation, because yoga equals meditation. Yoga is for the mind. Ayurveda is for the physical world, the physical body, and Jyotisha is for the spirit. So there's a little bit of cosmology in there. Jyotisha is astrology. So these 3 sisters are the daughters of the Vedas, which is where all this philosophy comes from. And everything I do, because I was introduced to this as a little child, first just sitting. That's what the Quakers do. They're not teaching yoga or traditional meditation, but rather they're teaching you to sit for an hour quiet once a week. How many 6th graders do you know that get the opportunity to do this unless they're going to a school like that?
Yeah.
And they sang on Tuesday mornings. That's growing up, even though my family moved and I went to a different school, it was still the same pattern. And I went to boarding school for a while, and then we sat for 2 hours also on Sundays if we were boarders. Uh, so there was a lot of time for contemplation
Yeah.
and learning stillness. So now, 5 yoga certifications later, 2 of them are lineages. My first, when I was 17, there was another job early on teaching yoga. Uh, it, what is the bottom line? I'm sure you're wondering. What weaves this together? It's love, teaching people how to love themselves, and how to love nature and our world and each other. That's what my purpose is. That's my
So,
dharma.
so taking that baton to the next step here, who's been a hero for you? Who have you universally looked up to and seen as somebody that's a like your number one role model or hero?
Oh, Dalai Lama, though Buddhist, still, come on. He's he speaks all of these truths so beautifully. He is the keeper of peace for this planet, in my belief. Um, there have been many. I mean, from musicians to poets to writers, but every teacher that I've had, whether they were comfortable or uncomfortable, these are all major influencers. And there have been a few bright stars along the way, and some of them were very irritating in the beginning. And there's one who was a most beautiful teacher. She was my master teacher when I did my externship for getting my teaching license. Uh, and this was in art school. And we reconnected. I'm in a writing group, and we write from prompts. And one day I was just triggered to think of when I helped her as a student teacher. And I started writing. I was rifling through some old photo albums to remember information for this little short piece I was writing during one of our writing sprints. And I I thought, after I read it, I looked for her and I found her on Facebook, and we're connected again. It's so amazing. When I was with her, she was writing a book called The Special Artist's Handbook. Now think about this, Joe. I went to art school, so we were being put into places to teach art. And this class was held in a boardroom, big wooden old table in an old high rise in Philadelphia. And everybody's getting these assignments and getting so excited. You're going to the famous art institute to work with painters, and it's going to be, the joy of your existence. And you're going here, and it comes to me, and I get sent to the school for the blind as a visual artist to teach. And I started crying. Most people had left after they got their assignments. He saved me for last. And he knew it was going to hit me. He had been my teacher for several semesters. And when I finally choked up the question, why, he said, because you're the only one who can handle this. And this teacher, it's making me cry a little. This teacher requested someone who could not only handle this, but she's writing a book. So you'll assist her with research on, for this book. That was the first book I was ever involved with. And what my job was, aside from teaching these elementary school children, which I kid you not, everybody, I had to travel 2 hours each way, each day to get to this school because I had to walk. Then I had to take a train. Then I had to take a trolley to get there. And the same thing on the way back in the wintertime. I know it sounds like one of those stories, but it's true.
Wow.
And 6 weeks, it doesn't sound that long now, right? When we're younger, it sounds a little longer. And when you're getting an assignment like that, it does. And the first day in the first class, they were little. I think they were maybe second grade. And some of them were not just without the gift of sight, but some were autistic, some had other challenges. And there was an autistic child, and she grabbed my hair and pulled out chunks of it. I didn't know, put your hair back in braids or be careful. And to introduce yourself, you make contact if it's okay. And she got out of her aide's hands, and it was just intense.
Yeah.
I cried the whole way home that day, but I cried a lot on the way home. But I have to say, as I look back, I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah.
I got to develop things, I got to test it out with them, and I saw magic happen with these kids.
Yeah. So I want to follow up that story. There's a couple of questions based on what you said there. First of all, if you could meet, and you may have already answered this, but if you could meet one person alive on the planet right now and spend time with them, who would it be?
Oh, right now I would want to meet Dalai Lama because he's here. And
Okay.
then he'll be an infant, and it'll be a while before he's, well, this Dalai Lama, if you've read or watched any of the movies made about him, and I just saw there's a new one. I want to check out a new documentary. But he's definitely number one. Einstein, absolutely.
Yeah.
Always been a huge fan. I've talked about him a lot and written about him over the years.
Yeah. So as a kid, what was the book for you that parted the curtains? What was the book you read that made you either think, I love reading or I want to write someday? What was that book for you?
It was Mad Magazine.
Nice. Very nice.
It was Mad Magazine books, probably because I had a much older half brother that was in with my family. I mean, when you're 13 years older, you don't stick around much longer.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, he had Mad Magazine. He was a collector, and for some reason, I remember some of the books, but the very first thing about kind of creating a story was Spy versus Spy in the
Oh man.
margins.
I
So,
was that's where my brain went.
so I I did it really when I said Mad Magazine?
Oh yeah, first thing. 100%. That's why I got
Oh
Mad Magazine.
my gosh. I wish I was wearing white. You're wearing black. It would be perfect.
That's right. Right.
Well, my hair is covering my t-shirt mostly, but
Yeah.
yeah, so Bless the heart of my teacher at the time. It was that and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory,
Yeah.
because Charlie and the Chocolate Factory was the first book I read that wasn't with pictures everywhere. But
Yeah.
the thing about Spy versus Spy that I thought was so cool was it was a story running when there were other stories. And
Yeah.
so overlapping became very fascinating to me. And I always, looked at how was the editor, this is going through my little kid mind. How did they figure out which Spy versus Spy went with which pages?
Hmm.
How did they decide, where did it get dispersed? And if you look at my newest book, my sixth book, Cupid is a Bastard, I'm pulling off some of this stuff because I'm using little graphics and drawings of my own, photographs. It's got poetry, it's got flash fiction, it's got a short story that's part fiction, or is it, of me talking to Cupid. It's got recipes, aromatherapy, and chocolate that my editor said, "Are you going to put any of your chocolate recipes in here?" And so I used to do that in the margins of my notebooks, and bless my third grade teacher. She did not tell me stop. So I guess I was a graphic novelist at a very early age.
And we keep coming back to the third grade here for some reason.
Do we? Yeah.
Yeah, that was my first. That was that you were in front of third graders. I asked what you wanted to do at third grade, so we got a
Oh,
theme here.
yeah. Okay.
Okay, so every day we wake up, the alarm clock goes off. We're impelled to get out of bed, and we all have motivations to go through the day. What is it for you? What drives you through the day? What do you want to do?
Oh boy. As far as alarm clocks go, I only use them when they are absolutely necessary.
Okay.
I could sleep very late, or like this morning, I awoke long before the sun came up. And if I feel myself up at that time, I will sit to meditate for as long, could be 2 hours. If it's late in the morning, I'm usually feeling the sunlight even, through the walls and the roof. So I'm up and doing stuff. Maybe I'd meditate outside, or other things, or perhaps meditate later in the day. But usually there's that. I'm not a morning eater. I can survive on a cup of coffee for hours, or just water, or, it doesn't matter. Tea doesn't have to be caffeine. So morning person and routine person do not fit me at all. I can adapt. I mean, I've lived at an ashram. That's like boot camp. Seriously.
Yeah.
If it's a real ashram.
Yeah.
It's a long, rigorous day, especially you go there to study and you're working too, you know?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, we're going to go to the whole other side of this. How do you quantify a good day? When you look back, you lean back in the easy chair and you think about the day that you lived. How do you quantify a good day for you?
My body feels good. I feel at peace and relaxed. And I've made someone smile or be happy, and I've given a lot of love to people. I've been creative. I feel I feel like I've made things or progressed on a project, but I can have multi projects. I know all the stuff about, multitasking, whether it's yay or nay, but I have lots and lots of projects going at all time. And if I've exercised, did I go skating? I'm a roller skater, a quad skater, and I love skating through my neighborhood. Did I get enough that I feel relaxed and digestion feels good and nothing, if something's stressed me, I mean, come on, we hit speed bumps and sometimes walls, right? So if I feel like I'm handling it, and that I'm loving the other person, that the thoughts are clear. I still study at the ashram, and I've been focused in the direction of thought, the mind, and always new concepts around meditation. And uh, we were we've been focusing on some similar things about transferring any negative energy into positive. So utilizing a phrase, and it's in English, that was developed by a psychologist he lived in the late 1800s, early 1900s, named Emile Quay. It shows up the same phrase in the Silva Mind theory. I heard it used at Mind Valley because Vishen, the leader there, he's teaches Silva now. I took it with him actually, but I learned it way back from a meditation teacher. And also, if you were a fan of the Pink Panther movies, the originals, it was used
Yeah.
in those too. And remember, those took place in France. So when they
Yeah.
were spoofing psychology in the movie, they were using this phrase. So you'll remember it. It's either every day in every way, or it could be day by day in every way. I'm getting better and better. Different
Yeah.
people try and tweak it. And in a most recent course that I took, it was suggested to add the idea of a divine essence if you believe in that. If it's nature, let it be nature. But by the grace of nature, or if you believe in can I say God? If you know, if you believe in God, I say by your grace, God, because I do believe in a higher power. What the image projects in your mind may not be how I perceive it,
Sure.
but I do say that.
Sure. So the beauty of age is that we have this chance to accumulate wisdom and look back and correct and figure things out and just get wise. So let me put this to you. You have a dream tonight. You run into your 20-year-old version of yourself, and you get to ask that version of you, or you get to tell that version of you one thing, a piece of advice based on what you've learned in your life, the wisdom. And it's not about regret. It's more about imparting wisdom. What would you tell your young version?
Just one thing, or
Well, you could do a few things.
okay. Be really creative. Make sure everything that you're investing yourself in gives you a warm feeling in your heart. As a matter of fact, make decisions from your heart, not your head. Always, when you're faced with a big decision, take 24 hours before you hit the button with yourself on that decision making. And be honest as much as you possibly can. Love people. Even what you might at first react to and feel is not pleasant. Love everyone and everything.
That's great. That's a great guy. I mean, that's what the third graders should hear. Um,
Yes. Or kindergartners.
yeah, right. Everything you need to learn. So let me ask you this. You've done a lot of things, and between writing and being a professional, what's been the best fan letter, best feedback that you've ever gotten from somebody that's either read your work or been a part of your world as a client or something along those lines?
Well, I think one of the best fan letters, which was very unexpected, was from a teeny kid who drew a picture of me playing drum and rainbows all around me. And I still have it. I have a scrapbook with, things like that. Um, there have been so many highlights of people I have met that could be mind blowing. I can list a couple if you want to hear them.
Sure.
Jimi Hendrix, when I was a little kid, totally by chance. Um, I I met and I've had lessons with some of them. I mean, great healers. Like one of the first 27 Reiki masters in the US was my teacher. And professors, my professor that I still study with, I feel so blessed to know him. Great swamis and yogis. I met Swami Vishnu Devananda, the disciple of Swami Shivananda, who the ashram where I study is his ashram. I met Swami Vishnu when I was a little kid, and Peter Max together at a Peter Max art gallery. And it was when Peter wasn't really famous,
Yeah.
or as famous as he got,
Yeah.
and he
Yeah.
was involved. He was part of that lineage. I still have the original book that my mom bought me, and she bought me a scarf. I of course wanted a painting, but they were way out of our price bracket, for
Yeah.
purchases, and she bought me a book with Peter's paintings in it, and the words of Swami Shivananda interpreted by Swami Satchitananda. I would have loved to have met him. I
Yeah.
didn't meet Swami Satchitananda, but I often recommend his books to beginners who
Yeah.
are wanting to understand things like the Patanjali Yoga Sutras or the Bhagavad Gita.
So based on the profound amount of knowledge that you've gotten in your life, the
Oh,
wisdom
thank
that
you.
you've gained, the experiences, I'm going to toss something out here for you. There was a part in the Beatles anthology, the one that ran in the 90s, and Paul McCartney was talking about meeting Bob Dylan for the first time. And they were at a party and they were getting high and they were doing their thing. And at one point, Paul had this divine moment where he wrote down the meaning of life on a piece of paper and he put it in his pocket and he couldn't find it the next day. So he has no idea what he wrote down, but he wrote the meaning of life down. He had it figured out then. So my question to you is, at any point in your life, in any proverbial or real way, have you ever gotten to that point where you've written that down on a slip of paper and
And
you
lost it.
maybe right, but or what would be on your slip of paper right now at this point?
As far as something I figured out or that I wish I remembered.
Maybe either one. I mean, it could be one and the same, but just kind of what life is at this point.
Okay, what I've got figured out so far, Joe, is that I'm pretty sure with everything I've been studying and on this path of understanding thought and the mind and our relationship to the mind, because notice I don't say my mind, right? I say the mind because yogis, we see it as external. We don't this is a computer. We know we can carve pathways, like we can save files, right? In a computer. But who's really noticing is the question. And I have been witnessing more and more of what unfolds in life. And lately I've noticed I haven't been dreaming as much as I used to. I used to dream. I have dream journals, tons of them. I mean, some of them made their way into the newest book, into Cupid is a Bastard. And I just had this flash this morning. I didn't write it down. So you're getting it first. That it really is true. What we're thinking and projecting today, we're waking up to tomorrow.
Yeah, I dig it. Yeah. So,
Seriously. But
yeah,
I mean, to the point of like, where did that? I thought I saved a file, or I thought I wrote this down, or I thought I put it in my pocket,
yeah,
right?
yep,
Like it happens with physical stuff. So where something, have you ever had this happen? Something you lost turned up years later in a completely different spot?
yeah, yeah.
My former music partner, Brent, who is still my best friend, he calls it the little people. He says they snatch it and then bring it
Sure they
back.
do.
Yeah.
They're all having a party. They're all somewhere having a party,
Or
and
is it other dimensions like Yogananda talks about in his autobiography? How do we know?
so everyone out there has a perception of you, an idea of who they think you are, your
Oh
family, your
Lord,
friends,
yes.
your clients, your readers, everybody, but you are in control of your life. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I'm realizing this also because remember, everybody, I stayed with elderly parents through the end of their lives. And my mom, she died just before her 97th birthday, just less than 2 weeks. So I give her 97. That's a lot of years here on this planet.
Sure.
Yeah. And I remember in those last 5 years, because I spent so much time with her, talking, asking about, relatives and stories. And I realized, hey, I don't think we're really much different than what we started out as. So I've been looking at myself like this a lot. Now, I don't know, did you ever teach, or maybe you were a camp counselor for littler kids, or maybe your family, maybe you've babysat a lot, or on family times together, you've been around groupings of kids for extended periods of time. But I remember noticing this too when I was a camp counselor as a teenager at an overnight camp where you stay away, a slumber camp, some called it. And one of the encampments, because there were different sections throughout the summertime, uh, was with littler kids, one of the youngest groups. And I could see this kid is going to be an executive. This one, I'm not quite sure what they're going to be. This one might be an athlete. Do you know what I mean? You start seeing these things. And so in these courses that I've taken over the years at the ashram, what I've learned to articulate about this is we're already come in with all this stuff. I mean, why does one person have the potential and propensity to be such a great pianist? I watched a video of a little kid on YouTube or something this morning. I mean, he couldn't have been more than 3 or 4, sit down at a drum set and play with an orchestra. Now, come on. And
Right.
he was
I get it.
nailing the beat, and I was a drummer, okay? So I kid you not. And I thought that's exactly what I've been, imagining recently, is
Yeah.
like trying to take in that concept and look for indicators of it, of, proof. And then I remember I found this photo of my mom with her favorite cousin. They were little. Her mother was a seamstress. She had made them winter coats, and they looked so happy and proud. They had handmade hats and these little coats with belts. And I remember when she held it and looked at it, she was right back there. She was no
Mhm.
different. And then as I think about more behavior, I think, yeah, I mean, you've always been the same person. Why did I think when you got older, you became wiser? Yeah, well, hopefully we gained some knowledge. That's the whole reason why we got the gift of life. But I don't know that we all mature as souls quite
Yeah.
as we set out to do. The way I see it is we have a dance card that can get fulfilled. And this is what we call one of the 4 types of karma. You might only know instant karma and karma, but there's actually, it's broken down a little different. And it's not like I come into this lifetime because I need to meet you as a soul, because you and I interacted in a way in the past, and that's why we have to work it out now. No, you mirror something to me that will give me the opportunity so that I can work through the stuff myself. Sometimes we do travel in groups. This is my perceived concept of what I'm learning and what I'm experiencing, everybody. But this is called prarabdha karma. We build it up. It's the fructification of past actions. So there's tons. There's more than we brought in this lifetime, believe it or not. But we pick what I call a dance card for a lifetime. And then we meet people. We're born into situations where we can start working on it right away. And everybody and everything counts. You're in line, in traffic, at a red light. You don't even look over. That's still an agreement right there. Everybody and everything is interconnected. Everything is alive and everything is interconnected. My favorite quote by Cicero.
That's wonderful. I was just thinking about the kids and how I c- I can never shake that Bukowski quote. We're born geniuses and buried idiots. It's like we
Yeah.
have all of these things, no walls are up, we're just fresh, My stepdaughter has a new puppy, and I just look at how it interacts with the world and how it looks around. It's like it's mind-blowing as an adult to look at that, because there's just so much of that that is just literally a blob forming all of these things. And
Mm.
there's a lot of us that are in control of how it's going to grow up and how it's going to perceive the world. It's kind of cool how all of that works. The cycle of life. Watching that, after you've had a little time on this planet, it's a fun thing to do. So we've kind of scratched the surface here about who you are and what you've done. So let's let everybody out there make decisions on where they want to go. Tell them where to go to get your books, to learn more about you, hire you, anything
Mm.
involving your world. Where do they go?
My website, which is ambikadevi.com. Everything's there. I've got blog articles. You can listen to them. My podcast is me. It's either audio versions of my articles or guided meditations, and you can listen on any platform you choose. All my books are there, and the blog articles have lots of information. You can make appointments. So it's ambikadevi.com. That's AMBIKADEVI.com, ambikadevi.com. And then you can find my newest and current stuff always on my link tree. So that's linktr.ee/my name, Ambika Devi, AMBIKADEVI. You don't need a .com after that one.
Nice. Wonderful. This has been great. Thank you for opening up. Thank you for letting us into your world for a little while. Have a great 2023 and beyond. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Joe. And thanks for listening to the end, everybody.
All right.